everyone, Thomas from the YouTube channel Brettspiel-Heroes, and it's German for Boardgame-Heroes. And today I'm presenting you The Essence by Cube Factory of Ideas, and this is a Kickstarter preview, so keep in mind that all the components that I'm showing you are just prototype components. And what's the game about? The Essence is a strategic board game for 2 to 5 players in which you try to restore the world crystal. And in this game you can build your faction, you can make quests, you can attack other players, you can hire advisors who help you. And how the game exactly works I will show you in this episode, and I wish you a lot of fun. The goal of the game is to get the most crystal shards. In a free-player game, which I built up for you, the game ends if one player reaches 11 crystal shards. Then the player with the most crystal shards restores the world crystal and wins the game. So, at the beginning of the game, every player chooses one faction and plays the corresponding faction board, follower cards, wooden faction cubes, faction tokens in front of him, and furthermore he adds a starting card. Additionally, the player gets his faction palace and places it above his faction board. The starting player places his faction token on the first spot of the order track and receives 0 wealth. The second player, in this case the blue player, puts his token on the second spot of the order track and gets 1 more wealth. In that case, 1 wealth. And the third player puts his token here and gets 2 wealth. Then you reveal the top 6 prophecy fragment cards. As you can see, the stack is built up from 1, 2 to 3, and that's the value of the prophecy fragment cards. Then you reveal for each player 2 location cards, and at the beginning of the game you add additional 2 cards. Sort the 6 different advisor cards by their name, for example you can see it here, and put it face down pile below the game board. Place the wealth tokens, the influence tokens, the exhaustion tokens and the foundation tokens next to the board. Finally, place the black defense cube on the 0 spot of the external threat track. Now we can start the game. The Essence consists of several rounds. Each round consists of 5 phases that are resolved in the following order. In the first round you skip the first phase, the preparation phase, but I will explain this phase later. So at the first round you will start with the income phase. During this phase all players take the following steps simultaneously. Every player gets the income that you can see on the left of your faction board. For example, this player gets 2 influence tokens, 4 wealth, draws 2 cards from his follower deck, gets 2 foundation tokens and put it here, and finally he marks his attack and defense. For example, this player has an attack of 2 and a defense of 1. These stats can be modified through segments, for example with golden symbols like the yellow player has, or through other special abilities from faction cards, etc. After every player gets his income, the next phase begins, in that case the advisor phase. Take the following steps in order. First of all, reveal the top cards of every advisor pile. And after that, every player will secretly bid. For that, every player takes an amount of influence and wealth tokens in his hand, and all players will reveal their bids. For example, if it's like this, the red player bids this. The player who bids the most tokens chooses his advisor first and adds it to his hand. For example, the red player bids this 2 tokens, the blue player this 2 tokens, and the yellow player bids 3 wealth tokens. In that case, the yellow player chooses his advisor card first. For example, he can choose to get this card and add it to his hand. Then you can see that there's a tie between the red player and the blue player. If there's a tie, the player who bids the most influence tokens will win the tie. So in that case, the red player will start choosing his advisor cards. So he chooses this card and adds it to his hand. Then the blue player takes a card, for example this card, and now you can see that there are 3 cards left. In that case, you will put a wealth token on every remaining card. So in the next rounds, you will get the card and you can get the wealth tokens that are on the cards. Another important point that I want to mention is that if there is a tie and there's no influence token, for example, if it's like this, the first player on the order track chooses who will win the tie. The 4th phase is the player turn phase. Beginning with the starting player and proceeding according to the order track, the player takes turns until everyone passes. On your turn you can make 1 main action and as many side actions as you want. Side actions can be taken before or after taking a main action. One main action is build a segment. Flip a foundation token to its exhausted side to build a segment action. Then you choose one location, pay the cost on the left and add the card to your island. For example, the red player can buy this card by paying 2 wealth tokens and add this card to his island. It's important that locations have to share at least 1 edge. After that, you earn the essence point that are indicated and modified on the top. In that case, the red player gets 2 essence points, but because he put this new location card next to a red one, it wasn't that clever, he gets -1 essence point. So, in that case, he gets 1 essence point and marks it here. Then you can see that there's a special ability that is marked in gray. If it's marked in gray, you can activate this special ability immediately. In that case, the player draws 2 new cards. Another main action is signing a treaty. As your main action, you can also use one of the 4 treaties. To take a treaty action, you have to place your faction token on the corresponding treaty action. Then you have to pay the required gold or influence tokens, in that case, for example, 2 influence or wealth tokens. There are 4 treaty actions. Here you can raise your defense value by 3. For example, if the blue player chooses to make this action, he places faction token here, pays 2 wealth tokens, and can raise his defense by 3. The next treaty action is to move one of your previously placed segments to a different location. For example, this player can swap these 2 locations. Or he can swap locations of any 2 of his previously placed segments. In that case he can't do it because he has just 1 segment at this point placed. This treaty action allows here the player can draw 2 cards from his draw pile. So if the yellow player chooses this treaty action, he pays 3 wealth and influence tokens. and he can draw 2 new cards. The last treaty action is attacking a chosen player or external threat. If you attack another player, you compare your attack value with the defense value of the other player. If your attack value is higher, you win and gain the ascent points equal to the difference between attack value and defense value of the defender. For example, here you can see that the blue player has an attack value of 2 and the red player has a defense value of 1. So if the blue player chooses to attack the red player, he gets 1 ascent point because there's a difference of 1. He marks this on the ascent track. Then, after a successful attack, he can get 1 influence or wealth token. So in that case, he takes the influence token. Another possibility is to exhaust one of the segment actions. So he can also choose, instead of taking the wealth token, to exhaust the segment. If you attack the external threat space that is marked here, you also compare your attack value with the defense value of the external threat, and you will also get the ascent points equal to the difference between the two values. But you don't get the influence or the wealth tokens. Another important thing I should mention is that every time a player makes a successful attack, the defense player increases their defense by 1. For example, in the last battle between blue and red, the red player can increase his defense value. The next main action is using an action marked with a full star. If you play a card from your hand with that symbol, for example here, you just use the effect and place it to your special discard pile. For example, this action allows the player, if he pays 1 wealth token, he can think he has 1, he pays it, and he will increase his attack and defense value and can attack another player. So that's one action he can do. Another main action, you can see that there are full stars on the cards, but also on the segments. If you choose to make an action with a full star on a segment, like here, you can exhaust the card and make the action. The last action is to pass. If you pass, you won't be able to take any other actions in the following turns of this round. If you pass first, you will be the first player in the order track for the next round. For example, if the yellow player chooses to pass first, he will be the starting player for the next round. Once the player has passed, they may not take, as I mentioned, any more normal actions. However, each time that player would start a turn, they gain ascent points. 1 ascent points on the first turn, 2 on the second, and 3 ascent points on the following turns. For example, if the red player takes a turn, the blue player takes a turn, and then normally the yellow player would start a turn, he just gets in the first round 1 ascent points, and in the second round 2 ascent points, and so on. So that are the main actions of the ascents. What are the side actions? Side actions are playing cards or use segments with a non-full star. And like the actions marked with a full star, you use the effect of cards and discard it, like this card, or place an exhaustion token on a segment and use the effect. Keep in mind that you can play the side actions before or after taking the main actions. The other side action is to read a prophecy fragment. First, you have to pay a special amount of influence tokens to get the prophecy fragment. For example, in that case, you have to pay 1 influence token. There you can see the requirements that must be met in order to claim the card. After that, if you are successful, you get a one-time bonus, as you can see here. And furthermore, on the back you can see the value of the Prophecy Fragment card. In that case, is worth 1 point. The Prophecy Fragment cards are moved to the right, and you will reveal the next top card. After collecting the third Prophecy Fragment card, for example, if the blue player manages to get 3 cards, he will get a crystal shard. After everyone passes, a cleaning fast will take place. Remove all exhaustion tokens from all segment cards and return them to the common supply. Remove all face-up locations and monuments and place them to the discard pile. Remove all foundation tokens from your faction board and return them to the common supply. The player with the most sense points, let's just simulate a situation. The player with the most essence points earns 3 crystal shards. The second player 2 crystal shards and the third one 1 crystal shard. For example, here the red player gets 3 crystal shards, the yellow player 2 and the blue player just 1. It's important to mention that in a 4 or 5 player game, every player who didn't gain any crystal shards will get 1 revenge token. That are these tokens here. If a player with a revenge token manages to be on the first place in the next round, he can pay 1 revenge token and get an additional crystal shard. So that's an interesting catching up mechanism. Starting with the first player, every player can reserve 1 Prophecy Fragment card. For that, he places a token on the Prophecy Fragment card. For example, if a red player chooses to reserve this card, the blue player to reserve this card, and the yellow player to reserve that card, these cards will remain. The other Prophecy Fragment cards will be removed and it will be filled up, like this. Now every player may reshuffle their discard pile and draw piles together to form a new draw pile deck. So the red player can choose to shuffle the cards and place it next to the board. After that, the external threat attacks, and you compare the value of the external threat with the defense value of every player. So let's simulate a situation. Let's say the external threat is on the spot 3. I forgot to mention that if a player attacks the external threat will increase by 1. So every time a player attacks the external threat, it will raise 1 spot. But in this situation, let's say the external threat is on the spot 3. So we will see what happens now. The external threat attacks every player. So, for example, he attacks the yellow player, and as you can see, the yellow player has just 0 defense value. So the difference is 3. The yellow player has to pay 3 wealth or influence tokens, because that's the difference. In that case, he doesn't have any wealth or influence tokens, so he is lucky and he doesn't have to pay anything. The other players are safe, because the blue player has a defense of 6 and the red player has a defense of 3. Check if any player gained enough crystal shards to trigger the end of the game. This number depends on the number of players indicated on the crystal shard track. For example, here we have a 3-player game, so the game end will trigger if someone reaches 11 crystal shards. If the game end isn't triggered, the next round begins with the preparation phase. In the first round, the preparation phase was skipped, so I will explain you now how the preparation phase works. First, return all faction tokens to the 0 spot of the Essence track. The player who passed first during the previous round places the tokens, as you can see, on the first spot of the order track. The second player on the second spot, and the third player on the third spot. Draw always 2 monument cards, you can see them here, and 2 locations card per player. Furthermore, everyone gets his faction tokens from the treaty actions back. Then the round continues with the income phase, which I explained earlier. The game end is triggered, as I mentioned before, if a player reaches the required number of crystal shards. So again, if a player reaches 11 crystal shards in a 3-player game. The player with the highest total value of prophecy fragment cards gets 4 crystal shards. The second highest value gets 2 crystal shards, and the third highest total gets 1 crystal shards. In case of a draw, all players sharing a position gain the full number of shards. And the player with the most crystal shards restores the world crystal and wins the game. So let's come to my final thoughts for the Essence. First of all, keep in mind that's just a prototype, so all the stuff will be different in the final product. And if you want more information, just click on the link to the Kickstarter page, and there you will get more infos. So what do I think of the game? First of all, I like the artwork of the game a lot. So I can't wait to see all the final artwork in the game. And yeah, I think it's a very nice theme to restore the crystal, world crystal, and yeah, I like that a lot. So what do I think about the game itself? I think, first of all, I like that there are many ways to get Essence points. You can build segments, you can attack other players, and there are many ways to get the Essence points. And the cool thing is that there's not that problem that one player is running away, because every round you are resetting the Essence points to 0. So you have another chance to choose another way to get points, and yeah, I like that very much. And I like that point of catching up mechanism, because if a player has a good round, you can get him in the next round again. And for that, I like the game a lot. The other thing I like a lot about this game is the attacking, because there you have a little bit interaction between the players. And in other games like that, there is not so many interaction between the players. And I like that it's so simple. You just compare the attack value with the defense, and that's all. I can imagine that some people don't like that and want some more complicated stuff, but for that game, I think it's perfect. Another thing I like is building the segments. It reminds me on Palace of the Mad King Ludwig, where you get a bonus if you play this segment next to another segment, and I think that's an interesting thing to think, where should I place the tile? And yeah, I think that's very interesting. So all in all, I think sometimes you're looking for negatives, but in this case I couldn't find any, because I like this game a lot and I can't wait for the final product. So I hope you check this Kickstarter out, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked it, I would be very happy to see a thumb up, and if you like our channel, to subscribe to our channel, and I see you next time. Bye bye.